Okay, now let us move towards the agro-based industries and mineral-based industries in detail. So let us concentrate first on agro-based industries. Agricultural produce like fruits, oilseeds, cotton and jute, etc. act as a raw material for number of manufacturing industries called agro-based industries. Means agro-based industries, they need a raw material which is directly taken from the agriculture, like fruits, oilseeds, cotton and jute, etc. So that is why these industries are called agro-based industries. The sugar, silk and woolen textiles are examples of agro-based industries. In this module, we will study cotton and jute textile and sugar industry in detail. So in agro-based industries, we are going to study cotton and jute textile industry and sugar industry in detail. So let us move towards the textile industry, Indian textile industry. Let us take a look first at the Indian textile industry in general. It is an important industry that contributes 14% to our total industrial production. Total industrial production, so whatever other industrial productions are there apart from textile, in that textile industry contributes 14%, okay, and 4% to our GDP. GDP means gross domestic production, the final value of any good. For that, textile industry shares 4% in GDP. The Indian textile industry is the largest employer after agricultural sector, employing around 35 million industries. So Indian textile industry is the second largest industry in India, where it provides 35 million people the jobs, okay, and employment opportunities after agriculture. So agriculture is the first sector which provides employment, and then comes Indian textile industry. The industry also generates 24.6% of India's total foreign exchange earning through export. So our textiles are the garment or the cloth which is exported to other countries. Out of that, we earn 24.6% of the total foreign exchange. Okay. Now let us see the production of cotton cloth. The production process in the textile industry is very interesting. Raw fiber like cotton is grown by the farmers. This fiber is spun into thread or yarn, as you can see in the image. The raw cotton, then spun or yarn, spinning process and yarn. Okay, and finally the cloth is dyed. Then dyed means colored, dyed, cut and sewn and finished to produce a garment like a shirt that you buy from the market. So this is the process: raw cotton, then spinning and yarn, and then knitting, coloring, cutting, stitching, and the final product we get by the textile industry. Activities like spinning, weaving, knitting, dyeing and finishing are important stages of production in the textile industry, obviously. At each stage, there is tremendous value added to output. For each stage, value is decided, okay, and that value is added for each stage. For example, the raw fiber like cotton, okay, raw fiber cotton, that is priced at rupees 85 kg per kg. So if you go to the market to buy cotton kilo in kilos, so for 1 kilo you have to pay rupees 85, okay. So this first stage also cost, a value is added, and the same cotton, when it is converted into a shirt, that shirt cost rupees 800 per kilo in form of a finished garment. So shirt is the finished garment from the raw cotton. So raw cotton cost rupees 85 kg per kg, and the finished product, the garment, which cost 800 per kg. Cotton, woolen and silk are the main types of textile produced in India. So only cotton is not produced by the textile industries, but woolen and silk are also produced by the textile industries. In fact, the textile industry is the only industry in India that is completely self-reliant in terms of raw material and technology to produce garments from raw material. So the textile industry is completely self-reliant. It has its own agriculture agriculture fields of raw cotton, and sericulture for silk and jute and everything. It has its own. Okay, and the final product is also, it is owned by him. The markets are closer to these industries. So if we say these industries, the textile industries, are not dependent on any other things, they are self-reliant. Further, cotton textiles have been produced in India since ancient times, as you can see in the images, the way of producing, how they are producing the thread and the garment. So since those early times, cotton cloth was produced in India using hand spinning and handloom weaving methods. Hand spinning, in the second image you can see, that is called takli. Takli means you have to spin the roll, and the thread gets spinned around that stick. That is called hand spinning. And the handloom weaving methods, the machine is there. In ancient times it used to be happen. During the colonial period, means British period, Indian market was flooded with cotton cloth made in British mills. This affected the Indian textile industry, as the local produce could not compete with the foreign cloth, with the demand for cloth in Britain increasing during the two world wars. So during British period, Britishers, they established their own cotton mills, and because of that, Indian market got flooded with the cotton cloth, and it gave the tough fight to our Indian made cotton cloth. It was affected. Our Indian made cotton cloth was badly affected because of the Britishers. The first cloth mill was set up in India in 1854 in Mumbai. At present, there are around 1,946 cotton textile mills in India. Around 80% of these are owned by the private sector. The remaining mills are either in the public sector or run by cooperative societies. So these are also several thousand small scale mills with 4 to 10 looms each. So there are total 1,946 mills. Out of that, 80% are owned by private sectors, and remaining 20% is either owned by public sector or by the cooperative sector. And each mill has 4 to 10 looms, means those machines in their industries in each. Okay. The cotton textile industry supports people in a number of jobs, like farmers, cotton pickers, workers engaged in ginning, spinning, weaving, dyeing, designing, packaging and tailoring. So these industries provide jobs and money ultimately to these workers who work as farmers, cotton pickers, ginning, spinning, weaving, dyeing, designing, packaging and tailoring. The industry also supports other production sectors like agriculture, manufacturers of dyes and packaging material, and engineering companies, manufacturing, spinning and weaving machines. So they invest and they support financially these other manufacturing industries which are dependent on them. The cotton textile industry started developing in India in the cotton growing regions of Maharashtra and Gujarat. So initially the location were decided for cotton textile industries was Maharashtra and Gujarat. Okay, some of the factors that contributed this growth were ready availability of raw material. Why only these two states? Because the ready availability of raw cotton, moist weather in both these states, and ready market and transport and port facilities. So because of these things, only these two states were chosen for cotton textile industries. The cotton yarn spinning industry is still concentrated in Maharashtra and Gujarat, and now in Tamil Nadu also, because Tamil Nadu is also a port state. Okay, however, the weaving industry spread over several parts of India where local artisans use traditional skills to add specialities like zari and embroidery. So on cotton cloth, we never buy a plain cotton cloth. Okay, we also buy zari work cotton cloth or embroidered cotton cloth or any garment or any dress material, sari, shirt, which is not only plain cotton, but it is work like zari and embroidery. So this zari and embroidery work is not only done in Gujarat, Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu, but this zari work and embroidery work is done all over the India, because the local artisans are present over there, and there these cloths are sent to do the further embroidery work. Okay, the table here shows the cloth produced in India by different sectors like mill sector, power loom sector and handloom sector. Okay. So here you can observe that mill sector is much less. Mill sector, it is in 2009 to 10 it was 3.3, and 10-11 it was 3.5. Power looms 84.1, same 84.1 in both the years. Handlooms 11.3 and 11.1. Okay, so in this you might have observed that mill sector contributes much less, but this is good, because this is good since automated cloth mills, they don't provide as many employment opportunities as the power looms and handlooms. If mill sectors started growing and they contribute to much higher production of fabric in their mills, okay, then employment opportunities will decrease in number. So it is good that mill sectors, they contribute less amount of production of cotton textiles. Okay, Mahatma Gandhi spread the movement of spinning cotton yarn and wearing khadi. Why he did so? This was an attempt to reject British mills and safeguard the interest of local weavers engaged in producing cloth on handlooms. Okay, this was just general information. India has world-class spinning facilities for cotton yarn. Spinning industry is capable of using all the raw fiber we produce. So India has world-class spinning facilities for cotton yarn, means we have those machineries available in India which spin the cotton thread into cotton yarn. Okay, India has about 43.13 million installed spindles, which is second only to China. In the second image you can observe those are spindles, okay, which make the cotton yarn. And India ranks second for these spindling or spinning industries. Okay, and we have 43.13 million installed spindles, which are next to China. Our spinning mills produce high quality yarns that is exported to Japan, the USA, the UK, Russia, France, Nepal, Singapore, Sri Lanka and many African and East European countries. So we have developed ourselves in spinning industries where cotton yarns are produced. World class spinning industries are there in India. India holds 25% share in the world market of cotton yarn. We hold 25% share in the world market for producing cotton yarn, but we share only 4% of share in the world market for cotton garments. So we have to work on our garments also, garment production also. This is because of poor quality fabric produced by weaving and knitting sectors. Why we only hold less share in the world market, only 4% share in the world market for cotton garment, because of the poor quality of fabric produced by weaving and knitting sectors. There are few large companies in the sector that use the expensive high quality yarn produced in India. The rest are small units that produce low quality fabric for local markets. Okay, since most industries in the weaving sectors use poor quality yarn, they produce low quality fabric. Obviously, if you use poor quality yarn, your fabric will be the final product will be poor quality itself. Okay, this results in a situation where India exports a high quality yarn, only a high quality yarn. Okay, if we upgrade our weaving sector, we can produce good quality fabric in India and make our garment manufacturing sector more competitive. So what we have to do, we have to upgrade our weaving sectors. How we have upgraded ourselves in our spinning industries? By installing so many advanced spindles okay, in the spinning industries. In the same way, we have to upgrade ourselves in weaving sector so that we can produce high quality fabric, and we can enter in the competition of worldwide of garments also. We still need to import a raw material to use our spinning capacity. Unreliable. So what are the challenges faced by the cotton textile industries today also? So we need to import raw fiber, that is cotton, to use our spinning capacity. Unreliable power supply, low output of labor, need to upgrade machinery, and competition from synthetic fiber industry are some of the other challenges faced by the cotton textile industry in India. Okay. Further, now let us move towards jute. Till now we have seen the cotton textile. Now let us see about jute textile. India is the world's largest producer of raw jute. The jute mill in India was established in 1859 at Rishra near Kolkata. So India is the largest producer of jute, and the first jute mill which was established in 1859 in at Rishra in near Kolkata. Following the partition in 1947, around 75% of the jute producing area in the region went to Bangladesh. However, most of the jute mills, that is jute mills, remained in India. That is not mica, that is mill. Okay. What happened? Rishra is a place which is located near Kolkata. Okay. And in 1859, first jute mill was established over there. But after 1947, that means when partition took place, okay, this is called the partition from the eastern side, where Bangladesh was separated from India in 1947. Not only in 1907 Pakistan was separated from India, but also Bangladesh was separated. At that partition time, some of the jute producing mills got separated and went into Bangladesh. Okay, so what happened? Following the partition in 1947, around 75% of the jute producing area in the region in Rishra went into Bangladesh. Okay, however, most of the jute mills remained in India. So most of the jute means 25% jute mills, they remained in India. The jute industry employs 3.7 lakh people directly and support around 40 lakh farmers who grow jute. Okay, India is the second largest exporter of raw jute products in the world after Bangladesh. After Bangladesh, India stands second, which exports raw jute to other countries. Okay, India exports jute to the USA, Canada, Russia, the UAE, means Arab countries. Okay, and the UK and Australia. India has around 80 jute mills, most of which are located in West Bengal along the Hooghly River. These jute mills are concentrated in a small strip of land that is 98 kilometers long and about 3 kilometers wide. Okay, now in India we have 80 jute mills, and most of these 80 mills are located in West Bengal along the Hooghly River. Hooghly River, which flows in West Bengal, and those mills are located along the bank of Hooghly River. A small strip of land is there, okay, which is 98 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. Now let us look at the factors that make the bank of river Hooghly an ideal place for jute mills. Why Hooghly River? Why jute mills are located near the Hooghly River? What are the factors which made it to do so? These reasons are closeness to the producing areas in West Bengal. Obviously, jute is produced in Rishra in Kolkata, okay, and West Bengal is located near Kolkata. A good network of rail, road and water transport. The second reason is West Bengal has good network of rail transport, road transport and water transport. abundant water supply that is required to process raw jute. Obviously it is located near the bank of Hooghly river, so you will get abundant water, and jute production needs a lot of water, so you get water from there. Cheap labor from West Bengal, Bihar, Orissa and Uttar Pradesh, and proximity to Kolkata that provides banking, insurance and port facilities. So here in West Bengal you will find cheap labor, means labor, people who work at who are ready to work at low cost. They come from West Bengal, Bihar, Orissa and Uttar Pradesh. And also proximity to Kolkata that provides banking, insurance and port facilities. Proximity means connectivity to Kolkata, and Kolkata provides banking, insurance and port facilities. That is why river Hooghly. Okay, the main challenges. Now let us look at the challenges faced by jute industry or jute textile industry. The main challenges faced by the jute industry are competition from synthetic substitutes and other jute manufacturing countries like Bangladesh, Brazil, Egypt, the Philippines and Thailand. So the first is the competition is from the synthetic substitutes which it needs. Okay, and also jute manufacturing countries, from the other jute manufacturing countries we have the competition like Bangladesh, Brazil, Egypt, the Philippines and the Thailand. So this was jute textile industry. Now we have covered cotton textile industry and jute textile industry. Now let us move towards the thing which is still related to jute industry. The Ministry of Textiles and Government of India formulated the National Jute Policy in 2005. What this National Jute Policy says: the main objectives of the policy is to increase in the productivity, improve quality, provide better rates for jute to farmers and increase in the yield of jute per hectare. For all these factors, this national policy was set up in 2005. So if the question comes, what are the main objectives of the National Jute Policy in 2005, you should be able to answer. Okay, and why and what, both answers are here. So we have done with cotton and jute textile industries. Now let see certain policy things which they have told us under the policy. The Government of India has taken initiative like mandatory jute packaging to increase the domestic demands for jute. Instead of using plastic packaging, government has taken the initiative that jute packaging should be done, and it is mandatory, it is compulsory according to the government. Okay, so people across the world are fast realizing the benefits of jute products, since they are biodegradable and environment friendly. They are not like plastic. Okay, they are biodegradable and environment friendly. Now here we have finished cotton and jute textile industries. Okay, in these last two slides we have seen the establishment of National Jute Policy by the government to improve its quality and its production. Okay, for that purpose, and government has also made it compulsory, mandatory to use jute packaging. Okay, and why? Because it is biodegradable and it is environment friendly. So we have done with cotton and jute textile industry. Now let us move towards sugar industry, which is also an agro-based industry. The sugar industry uses sugar cane as the raw material and produces several products like sugar, gur. Gur means gul, jaggery, and khansari. Khansari means khadi sakar, khansari. India is the largest producer of gur and khansari and second largest producer of sugar in the world. The sugarcane crop takes almost an entire year to grow. Thus, it is not available all the year round. This makes the sugar industry a seasonal industry. So, sugarcane industry is a seasonal industry because it takes the sugarcane. This crop takes nearly entire year to grow. Okay, and it is not available throughout the year. So, it is a seasonal industry. A large number of sugar mills, spelling is wrong over there. The large number of sugar mills in India are run by cooperative societies. The sugar produced depends on sucrose content of the sugarcane. The sucrose content reduces during the transportation. Thus, sugarcane mills must be located within or near the areas where sugarcane is cultivated. The question may come, why sugarcane mills must be located near the sugarcane industries or sugar industries? So the answer is the sucrose content in the sugarcane. What happens when these sugarcanes are transported from the agricultural area to the industry or to the mills, sugar mills? At that time, while transportation, the sucrose content, which is very important to produce sugar, okay, that sucrose content gets reduced. As long the journey is, the sucrose content gets reduced. So it is necessary to have the sugar mill near the sugar mills, okay, mills near the agricultural area of sugarcane where it is produced. Okay, at present India has 662 sugar mills, 60% of which are located in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, and the rest of sugar mills are located in Punjab, Haryana, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh. So sugar producing areas total we are having today 662 sugar mills. Okay, 60% of this, out of these sugar mills, are located alone in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, and then 40% of the sugar mills are spread in Punjab, Haryana, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and other states mentioned over here. Over the past few years, the sugar industry appears to be shifting to India's southern and western regions, especially Maharashtra. There is a shift in industries in sugar production, where they have shifted especially to Maharashtra. The main reason for this trend are higher sucrose content of sugarcane grown in this region. So especially in Maharashtra, where sugarcane is produced, that sugarcane contains higher sucrose. Higher sucrose content means higher availability of sugar from that sugarcane. A cooler climate and the greater success of the cooperative sector in these areas. The main challenges faced by sugar industries, okay, now let us move towards the challenges faced by sugar industries, are its seasonal nature that we have seen. So because it is not available throughout the year, it takes almost entire year to get produce sugarcane. So it is its drawback that it is seasonal in nature. And next is primitive inefficient methods of farming. Still farmers who are growing sugarcane, they are still using primitive and inefficient methods of farming. So there are it is like a challenge, okay, they have not shifted themselves to modern ways of farming. Delays in the transportation of sugarcane to the sugar mills and the needs to find use for the large amount of waste called bagasse generated during the crushing of sugarcane. Delays in transportation. If the sugar mills are located away from the agricultural field, then the transportation takes a longer time, and if it is taking too much time, then the sucrose content gets reduced and you get less quantity of sugar from those sugarcane. So this was also a challenge. And also the waste which is produced, means after crushing the sugarcane, when the juice is taken out of the sugarcane, the crushed material which is left out, it is not reprocessed again to make certain things, and it remains the waste material itself, and that waste material is called bagasse. So it is not still this problem is not solved, that waste material remains a waste and it is not reused. Okay, so these are some of the challenges of the sugar industries. So till here we have studied about agro-based industries in detail, and in that we have studied cotton and jute textiles and sugar industry. In our next video we are going to study about the mineral-based industries in detail. Thank you.